Picture this in a studio somewhere far, far away.
You bugger!
Picture this. Picture this.
The Mary Whitehouse Experience. Right, so the latest news from the Gulf, as you may be aware, is that journalists are going to be sent home if they can't run a mile in less than 14 minutes. So it looks like the Daily Star will be losing their new war correspondent, Steve Cram. Which brings us to...
Sport is two experiences, like experience of it on TV and experience of it when you try to do it yourself, and the boundaries between the two are rarely breached.
And the crowd here at this Winter Olympics are hushed in waiting for the freestyle routine of the Russian figure skating champion Andrei Serenko to begin. Serenko needs an average 9.9 to take the gold. Oh, that's fabulous. Serenko has begun by holding onto the barrier around the edge and wobbling. He's got about 3 feet round, and oh, look at that, he's fallen over. Now up he gets, no, down he goes, and he'll lose marks there for dropping his slush puppy. And now, yes, there it is, the bitter glance as a 7-year-old goes past, doing it really well.
Other sports, conversely, appear much more complex than they actually are. Sumo wrestling, for example, is meant to be this really technical and ritualistic sport, but surely it's just two blokes too fat to fight properly. You know, like the fat kids used to at school.
And welcome to Tokyo for the Sacred Dragon Sumo Challenge Final. The finalists are on the right, Pogo Patterson from Grange Hill, and on the left, Tank from the Walker's Crisps advert. And straight away, Tank's closed in with an oi shoko. This involves shutting the eyes and flapping the arms about wildly with no idea of your opponent's whereabouts. And there's the bell for the end of dinner break.
Other sports, however, have no connection at all with the real world. Walking, for example. I mean, don't professional walkers look back at the height of their careers and think, oh, I've trained really hard to look like a tosspot? I mean, a marathon walk is basically a 20-kilometre mince.
After all, what is the point? Because there is no situation where you'd have to move that fast where it wouldn't be better to run. Unless you're walking that way that you do when there are some hard lads behind you. And you start to walk fast but think, I'd better not run because then they'll know I'm not hard. But once I get behind that corner, I'll leg it. But in fact, you're digging your own grave because by now, from the back, you're doing an impression of John Inman.
The only other sporting event that involves stupid walking is the equestrian dressage. In this, the rider gets the horse to walk sideways. This he achieves by hitting it on the side of the head with a hammer. Horses have a terrible deal in sport. I mean, for a start, they are just shot at the drop of a hat. For a broken leg, that seems a bit rough. Why can't they just have, like, a splint and some plaster and, like, maybe a nice sit-down for the rest of the race? It's like with horses, all veterinary decency seems to break down.
Sorry to call you out, Mr. Harriet, only Bessie here has got a stone caught in her hoof.
Oh, not to worry. We'll soon have that sorted out.
Oh.
Anything else?
Well, Dobbin's been off his food lately. No, the others are all fine.
Hello.
Good Lord. It's the Queen. How can I help you, Mum?
Here's my daughter.
This kind of cruelty to horses only persists because the government refuses to legalise dogfighting. And we, at the Mary Whitehouse Experience, not only believe that dogfighting should be legalised, we think it should be televised instead of crufts. You see that programme Watch Dog that they have? That's not actually a dogfighting programme. I've watched that show for 3 years now and I haven't seen a single pregnant pit bull with his eye hanging out.
Hello. In today's Watchdog, We investigate the bicycle safety helmets that just aren't that safe, and electric blankets that could turn your home into a blaze. But first, it's over live to the back of a disused warehouse in Leicester for Red Fang versus Ripping Boy Rex. Your commentator is Harry Carpenter.
Good evening, there's a big purse for tonight's fight. The winner gets some extra winner lot and the loser gets thrown into the canal. With me for the ringside commentary is Scooby-Doo.
Well, Red Fang looked very confident at the weigh-in, despite the fact that in his last fight he got his penis bitten off.
The only other sport we'd like to see more of on TV is wrestling. If nothing else, this would bring giant haystacks back to our screens. A man named after that most terrifying of things, a haystack.
The government anti-drugs slogan at the moment is drugs, the effects could last forever. Surely it should be drugs, the effects could last forever if you're lucky. It's like a Duracell advert. No ordinary sulfate looks like it or lasts like it.
Another government slogan is, don't share your partner's works. What are works? Surely the government have just made up this word because it sounds sort of streetwise. And now there are, like, loads of heroin addicts who still share dirty needles but, like, adamantly refuse to lend out their copies of the complete Shakespeare.
Heroin is seen as the #1 evil drug, but though psychologically traumatic, right, some doctors contend that coming off heroin is the physical equivalent of a bad case of flu. But then this wouldn't be so dramatic in those bleak adverts with the tormented 15-year-old kid.
Heroin. I can handle it. It's just masturbating 14 times a day that's the problem.
And if it is like flu, in the next series of adverts, your mum would simply have to write a letter to school.
Dear Mr. Avery, Stephen has spent the last 2 weeks off withdrawing from drug abuse. But don't forget how we won the 100 metres in 4.5 seconds.
Also, why is withdrawal from drugs called cold turkey? Is it something to do with Bernard Matthews?
But we must, of course, come out against drugs, because I, for one, would never want anyone watching to find themselves in a casualty ward late one night, having to look a doctor in the eye and say, "But we're her friends."
Presumably as well, this woman has been going round at the party she's just been at, asking if anybody's got any drugs. Or any quack.
Drugs? Quack? Nah, sorry, love, I think you've had enough. Perhaps we can get you an interpreter.
All right, well, hello, Anna. All right. All right, thank you. Back after this break.
Meanwhile, one has to consider how much of a friend this woman really is. Because not only does she allow her friend to overdose, she is quite willing to entrust her medically to the hitchhiker from Burt Lancaster's Foster's advert. So what she should be saying is, hold on, you don't even know what an ulcer is and you're operating on my friend.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds shows the creative magic of acid-induced lyrics in lines like, newspaper taxis appear on the shore. Like, wow, what was going on there, man?
Oh, no, mate, I'm not going south of the river in this weather. No, the motor will get all smudged and turn into papier-mâché.